Now let's shift gears and look at Genie. Genie is probably the more interesting part of what Databricks is doing here. So what we're looking at here is what's called a Genie space. So Genie is a chatbot that can answer questions and build visualizations about data. Who are my top customers is the easiest one to imagine, right? What you can't ask it, and it provides these examples, and these are customizable. I'll show you how to customize them. But this is what an end user sees when they log in. This is not some admin view we're looking at right now. This is what an end user sees. And you can customize, but these give you examples of the types of questions that can be asked. Like it's directly referencing the sales customers table, right? So you can ask, what's our revenue? Who are our top customers? Like you can filter, you can order, it will build calculations on the fly for you. It does it via text to SQL is what it's doing under the hood. And you can see the SQL it generates. But what it's not doing is say what Zenlytic does, which is I'm looking to open a new store. Can you analyze where my existing customers are in Chicago and suggest the top 3 locations where it might make sense to build a new store? Right? It cannot do like a business question, a value question, a help me figure out X question. It can't do that. Let's just dive into it, right? Like which product sold the most unit? So like which product sold the most unit? It's thinking.
It is thinking.
Yep. And here you go. Here's the product that sold the most units.
And then you can see the SQL. Right?
And you can see if you see show code, it will show you the SQL.
Yeah, limit 1 since you asked for the top.
Because you said product, right? Can you show the products instead? So you can kind of iterate. It's not like a one shot.
Gotcha. So it is like doing some chatbot thinking.
Absolutely.
Thinking. There we go.
So here you can see, and now it will try to visualize
for us. Nice.
It will always give you a table, I find, and then it will also sometimes give you a visualization.
Okay.
Now you can change this visualization, and you have the same capabilities that you have in the BI side of AI BI, but you don't appear to be able to do anything with this.
You can't be like, this is great. Add this query to my queries, and then add this dashboard to this dashboard.
No.
Okay.
Nope. The only thing you can do with this is you can download a
PNG.
A PNG. Yeah. That's it. That's it.
Edit.
Yep.
No, gotcha. If you said make the bars red, would it change that configuration for you, or do you have to change the configuration?
Let's see. I haven't actually tried that. That's a great question. Now the bars are red.
Yep.
Right. Change it to a line chart. So it can do basic questions about data, and it can do these formatting changes, but it can't do the so what, right? Like the next step. If you discover something that's really interesting here, you have to like take the SQL out of here, plug it into dashboards, and then build, and
so
then recreate what you
If you ask it, brainstorm reasons that Austin Almonds might be a seller, or like, or whatever the Golden Gate, or whatever is Golden Gate, something.
Like who's the what's the name? I actually have the name of a company that's the top seller in this data set. What is it?
Golden Gate. If you scroll up, it'll show you Golden Gate product.
Yeah. Golden Gate Ginger. Brainstorm reasons Golden Gate Ginger might be our top product. So it is, it will, I can only assist with data analysis and queries related to the provided database schema. For brainstorming reasons behind the popularity of a product, you might want to consider these factors.
Okay, gotcha.
But it won't take a stab at it. It won't be
it won't do some queries. Oh, like query this other table, and I think these sales are caused by this region or whatever, because all the sales are in Wisconsin. So Wisconsin just loves these ginger cookies.
No, won't do it. And you also notice it won't answer questions in natural language, right? It will tell you what it did in natural language, but it won't actually say.
But it'll answer with the results, with the query results, or a visualization based on the query results.
Exactly. So again, behind the scenes, each one of these is an SQL query. You can see the SQL query of the, on the table.
So we got Rich. It shows the SQL rates. Missed that part.
What's
the SQL rates. Yes, so it shows the SQL rates. You missed that part.
Yeah, right here. Oh yeah, missed that part. Yeah, Rich. Yes, it shows the SQL. The SQL is right here.
Yep.
So, so like I said, it is useful. It's kind of what I would say is like the minimum bar you need to cross for a chatbot in the BI space, but it is not like doing reasoning or suggestions in the way that something like Zenlytic is. And then it's also not integrated into BI like a GoodData. Ours is really integrated into BI. So like you're doing something in the chatbot, like you're looking at a dashboard, you're talking to the chatbot, it makes a viz that you like, and then you say, add that to the dashboard, and it does it. Right? Whereas this is kind of off on the side.
Yeah, it's not integrated.
Now it does do some interesting things. So it has these follow-ups. It's funny, it's not suggesting any follow-ups right now, but normally there's like 3 buttons down here about next questions.
That's the magic about reviewing something giving a demo, something that's not your product. If it messes up, it's like, it messed up.
Yeah,
not
my
product.
Don't talk to me.
Don't talk to me.
So how do you actually build and manage these things, right? Well, the way that's done, and this is where I think what they're doing is more interesting. What we've seen so far is not that interesting. I mean, let's just be real. It's fine.
Yeah, it's cool.
What they're doing is more interesting is how do you actually build these things? So when you click this configure button, end users will not have this button, but you have it as an administrator. And what you're going to see here is this is the data. These are the data sets that form this Genie space. And what you can't do here that you could do in the BI is make new data sets out of SQL. You can only inherit data sets from Unity Catalog.
So you can't write a query in the query builder and then have the Genie reference it. It has to be in the catalog.
Well, you can, but it's you'll see how in a second, right? But you can't. You have to just consume the data sets as they are from the catalog. You could not at this stage say to yourself, oh, you know what? I want to write a SQL query to like do something to like generate, data that's not here, right? To reference a table that's not here.
Gotcha.
You just add these to it. Okay, so that's kind of what you do in data. Now, how many of these can you add? They recommend starting with 5 and not going over 25. And that is partially because they don't have a powerful semantic layer. Like at GoodData, we have a semantic layer that's got predefined joins and aliases and metrics and metadata and comments and all sorts of stuff that allows you to have a pretty big model, and the LLM can understand it pretty well. Not even that. I mean, it allows you to like select the right things to send to the model, and you can send the model the right context. You don't want to send the model a giant semantic layer, right? Necessarily.
No. But I think Juan did some papers about like comparing like sending like the relationships versus just like sending raw.
Yeah. Juan Cicada, for anybody who's like, who's Juan? He's at data.world. And he has some really great research that shows the difference between having a semantic layer with rich metadata versus just relying on text-to-SQL. And at the time of his research, I seem to think it was the difference between almost 100% accuracy with the metrics with the semantic layer and something like 80% accuracy with text-to-SQL. That's probably gotten better since then, because I think that research is about a year old. But
great, a year old and it's out of date.
Yeah, but okay, so you add the data, and then the next thing you're going to do is you define instructions for how you want the These are instructions for how you want the Genie to behave. So you tell it here, for example, the first quarter is these 3 months. So if someone says, show me, and like is a perfect example. Why would you want to do this? Well, if you're one of those companies that January is actually Q4 and the new year starts February 1st, you need to define that to the LLM. Because in LLM, if you say in Q1, it's just going to assume that Q1 means January, February, March, not February, March, April.
Yeah,
right?
calendar year.
So you define those types of instructions here. You also say things like, if someone is asking for franchise ID, always include franchise name, right? So anytime you're tempted to just show the ID, also include the name, because people don't have the IDs memorized, right?
Gotcha.
So it's not useful. It's not a useful output. And then you force them to say, oh, could you please show me franchise ID as well? So this is more interesting to me. So these instructions, again, exist just for this space. You can have more than one space. And each space is supposed to be targeted to a particular domain and probably even a subdomain. So this is not like come in and ask any question of your data warehouse.
Gotcha.
This is, okay, the salespeople have questions about quota and attainment. So we're going to make a Genie space about quota and attainment. And we're going to provide an instruction set that helps Genie understand the language salespeople use, the metrics that are important, and all the quirks of like our sales department. And what does our sales department call these concepts? And what are the most important questions of them? You provide all those instructions here. And then it takes that into account.
Yeah, it probably literally inserts exactly these instructions into every prompt you send.
I'm sure it does. I'm sure that's what it does. And then the final thing you can do is you provide to it, let me delete this because let's remove that. There we go. Okay. What it does here is you provide it SQL queries and SQL functions from Unity Cat. So you can write a SQL query here, or you can pull a function out of Unity Catalog. You can define SQL functions in Unity. And then it can use these as examples, right? So let me just define one for you. And you'll see what I mean. So I'm going to add a new query. It's going to be an example query. And this will be whales are franchises that spend more than $1,000 weekly total. Okay. So what I've just taught it is if someone uses the term whales, right? What that means is this, and this is the SQL. This is the SQL that defines a whale.
Interesting.
So if we go back here and I say, show me my whales. Before I did this wouldn't have rendered results. Genie didn't know what a whale was. But now, Genie, you can see this analysis identifies as franchises that have generated over $1,000 sales during any given week. The results highlight the most successful franchises based on their weekly performance. So it interpreted, hey, someone asked for whales. I know what that means. Let me generate, this is the SQL that tells me a whale. And I can even look at the code that they have here and say, did it use exactly? And it did use exactly the SQL I put in because I asked a really simple question. Show me my whales. Mm-hmm. Now it can also use these in part, like as hints, right? So it's not just like, oh, it just takes this SQL off the shelf and uses it in its entirety. It can use this as like a clue to how to answer some other question. Now, I don't have a good example of that to show you, but that's what the documentation says.
Who are my top whales in each region? Does this have geographic data?
Yeah, it does, right? Like,
who are my top whales in each region?
Top whale by city. I actually think it's the same. In every city, because this isn't a very rich data set.
Yeah.
But it will do its best now, right? It's going to use this definition of whale, and then it's going to write its own SQL that takes that into account. So this, I think, is pretty neat. Let's see what it comes back with. Now I want to point out something it's not doing, right? Yeah. So here you can see.
See, look, it gave you the franchise. It didn't catch the instruction.
That's exactly what I was about to point out, Eric.
It did not catch that instruction.
It's not applying this instruction.
No.
Nope. And also,
it is in the visualization.
Right. Right.
But it's not in the table.
And then I would say, like, boy, this doesn't look right. You know, like, what are we visualizing here?
Like, yeah.
Right. And you can see there's nothing on the y-axis.
Yeah.
So what can you do at this point? Well, this is where the management features and like the feedback and the learning come in to Genie. So of course I can manually fix this, right? But the other thing I can do as an end user is I can say, you see, they say, is this correct? Your response makes Genie better over time. And I can say, yes, it's correct. Or no, I want to fix it. Or I want to request a review.
Mm-hmm.
So what this does, this is kind of, yeah, it's good. Genie will learn, okay, that was good. I should do more of that. No, I want to fix it, or I want someone else to look at this because something seems off. Mm-hmm. So let's click that and say, this don't feel right, boss.
There you go.
And then send for review. Okay.
Review requested.
Review requested. Now park that for a second because we'll look at what that did in a minute. Okay. But first we're going to say, I can fix it, right? So I can say here what I think is wrong. The bars are all the same length and there isn't anything on the y-axis. Can you add weekly total? Submit and try again. So we'll see what it does.
Interesting.
I also think it's failing to apply the whale. Like the whales are only people who spent over 1,000, right?
Yeah.
But look here. It includes non-whales.
Yeah. So it didn't exactly understand what you were asking it.
Yep. And now it's like, no, I can't do that. So we've kind of like, you can see here.
Ooh, I've still got a job.
Yeah, exactly. We're all still employed, everybody.
I'm still employed.
We're all still employed. So you can see here what the kind of limitations are. Like we're pretty. This is not the world's most advanced set of questions we've asked, and we've kind of gotten ourselves into a black hole where like, how do I find my way out of this?
Yeah, you'd have to start over and hope.
Right.
You just have to do it.
And now this is kind of where the last two things I want to highlight are. So what have we seen so far? It's a fairly straightforward chatbot. It can't answer reasoning questions or it can't help you solve problems, but it can answer questions about data. It is fairly basic and it's not well integrated into the BI product. So they call it AI BI like it's one product, but I would really argue that
you're saying that slash between the two is doing a lot of work.
It's a big ass slash.
Okay.
It's not one product. It's not well integrated at this point. And then it has a lot of very interesting infrastructure, which we've looked at so far, and we'll look at a little bit more in a second. But it's just not working super well right now. Now, what Databricks would probably say if they joined us on this call was like, well, yeah, this learns over time. And you're using a Genie instance that has no learning. So it's dumb right now. What you really need to do in the real world is like prime this thing. You need to set it up. You need to release it to a small group of users who are going to accept the fact that it's dumb right now. Your power users, the people who really like you, and will work with you on the fact that like we just ran into a total brick wall trying to answer what might seem like a simple question. And they will work with you. You will improve the instructions. You'll provide more and better SQL queries. And that Genie, by the time you release it to the full audience, intended audience, it will be smart and it will be able to answer the questions we just put in here. Is probably what Databricks would say. Now, is that true? I don't know, because I haven't used it in that context.
Or are they going to be like, well, when I took my data in an Excel sheet, uploaded ChatGPT, it just worked. I didn't have to do all this other stuff to make sure it works for you. I just uploaded the Excel sheet to ChatGPT and it worked.
Yeah,
that could be what they say.
Exactly. So the final thing I want to show is like, what is that feedback loop? And it exists kind of in two places. One is in history, so you can kind of see like this is your personal last chats, so you can go through here and like see what did I do, you know, and pick up a chat. Like this is a chat I did earlier today. I can restart it from here. This is just your stuff as an individual. Where kind of the monitoring, the overview for everybody comes into play is here on the monitoring tab. So here you can see the actual, each individual question someone has asked, how they rated it, and then if there's a, if it's a,
bad rating and comment.
Right. Like you can see here, right? I'm not sure if this worked, right? And then you can look at it, and what it does is it shows you the SQL, right? And you can edit, so you can look at the context of what the user was asking, and then you get to the point where they said, this doesn't seem right to me, and it shows you the SQL that was generated that they said doesn't seem right. And what you can do is fix it so that it is right. And then you say, and then you say, checked it out, looks good now, dog. And then you say, Mark is reviewed. And now you just taught Genie something.
So did it add something to the like query knowledge earlier, or is at this point that is just nebulous background information?
Well, it didn't add anything here, right? It didn't add a new. There we go. Not sure why it's doing that. It didn't add anything here. So I think it's just some nebulous background learning that you don't have access to as an administrator.
Interesting.
But you could take that. One of the things you can do, like if we look at, let's look at one of these. Like what you see you can do. And here's the result, right? They reviewed it and said it's good, right? And then you can run.
So like the user would see that. And be like,
the user would see, hey, I reviewed this.
Yeah. See this, it used the wrong field. So here I replaced the field. It looks good now.
Exactly. The user can see what was done. But it's quite technical, right? Like the user's going to look at this and say, oh, fuck.
Like,
I don't know.
Okay.
That's that nerd language.
I don't speak nerd.
You can from here like add things to the instruction set.
Yeah.
So if you make something and you're like, okay, that's really useful, like add as instruction, and it will create a new instruction. You can see here.
Okay, so then you end up being like a library of like common queries,
exactly,
common questions, and the queries that answer them. That's actually kind of,
and that's where I think the promise of this tool lies.
That's neat.
Is in these management features and the way they're approaching it. I think for a targeted, if you take this domain-oriented approach and you say, we're not building a Genie space for a whole DW. We're not even necessarily building a single Genie space for HR. We're going to build a Genie space for questions related to payroll. And then we're going to build another one for questions related to time off and another one for questions related to benefits. And then we have 3 Genie spaces that are laser focused on those questions, like that question set and that domain. Then I think, and then you iterate and iterate and iterate, then I think it could probably be decently useful. And I do think this is a good foundation. Like they have the bones in place for something that I think could grow to a much more complicated. Eventually it could be, it's my whole DW and anybody can ask any question. Maybe.
Gotcha.
You can see like the scaffolding is here.
Yes.
So Ryan Goodman asks, so now that you course correct, can you ask the same question next time and get it right? Yes. Yeah. I didn't. So in this example, I didn't actually fix it, to be clear. So I can't show that right now. But I think that is how it works, right? Like now that we've answered, we've like fixed the question. If you ask the same question again, you'll get the right answer. Probabilistically.
Yeah.
Again, like
It's LLM stuff. Like you don't just like it ignored the instruction for like don't display ID, display the name instead.
Right.
Like it ignored that instruction, even though that was certainly injected into the prompt.
Right. Now, if I put it, let's put in here again. It's let's put in caps. Extremely important to never display franchise ID by itself. Always show franchise name alongside it. Okay. I've saved this in the instruction set. Now I think it is literally just providing this in the prompt.
Yes, that's being injected at the top of the prompt. I almost guarantee it.
So let's do a new thing. Show me total sales by for franchises.
And we have a few other comments after.
Okay. And now it did it.
Now it did franchise ID and name.
Now it's got the franchise name. Gotcha. And this is what the way in which interacting with LLMs is like interacting with people. You can tell them what to do, and they won't always do it.
Nope.
And we are not used to that. The clearer
your instructions are, the better
exactly
you'll be able to answer it, just like working with.
And we are just not used to that from computers. That you can tell it what you can give it an instruction set, and it can just totally ignore it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been doing that, as y'all have seen. Over the course of this entire demo, we had this instruction in here, and it ignored it. Mm-hmm. And then I got mad, and I used all caps, and now it's listening. It knows.
You should have put some of like the squirt gun emoji, so it really knows.
Yeah.
That it's under threat if it does not.
It's real serious. So that's it. That's AI BI in a nutshell. That's your demo. So what is it? It is a good enough for basic use cases BI tool combined with a slightly underpowered but interesting foundation for a chatbot.
I think I was looking at like news articles before the show because just in case something comes up during the show, like I'm informed. I think it was like Databricks integrates Llama 4 in the new. So I think maybe behind this might be Llama 4.
Yeah. I mean, presumably the goal is that you have these really rich general instructions. You have a really rich set of SQL queries to pull from. And you can see here's that one that we added, right? That we added in from here. It has a really rich set of SQL queries to pull from. And then maybe they can start putting in more reasoning where you can ask it speculative questions. Help me identify where I should put in.
Even this, I could see this being useful because like there's so many questions at university that are asked all the time, like, oh, like how do you determine if a student was active in a semester? And it's like, well, here's the PDF that shows you some sample queries, and then just adjust it to your needs. But it's like, well, if it's all right here, then that question might be answered even quicker.
Exactly.
Yep. So we've got some comments. A few on ThoughtSpot. Reminds me of what ThoughtSpot was trailblazing some years ago.
Yeah, Johannes, it's exactly what ThoughtSpot was like in 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then another one from John. ThoughtSpot has similar functionalities. Can you compare ThoughtSpot features to Genie?
Well, yeah, John, I think I'm not up to date on exactly where ThoughtSpot is right now. And this is a pretty fast moving field. So I don't want to say something incorrect, really. So that could be a takeaway. Maybe we'll do a deep dive on ThoughtSpot at some point, and then we can do a more direct comparison.
I said I was looking at the news, and it's like everything's like AI assistant added. Oh, what are the BI updates from the last month? Everything was added, And this company added AI assistant. This company improved their AI assistant, AI assistant, AI assistant. So it's like, yeah, maybe we want to do some more deep dives of the different AI assistants just to see, like, okay, like, so what is ThoughtSpot? ThoughtSpot was doing this 5 years ago. What's it doing now?
Right, exactly. I do think ThoughtSpot, certainly their marketing materials are more advanced than this, but good data. Databricks is, the Databricks marketing materials are also more advanced than what I just showed you.
Yes.
So, grain of
Hard to
salt,
say.
grain of salt with all that stuff. Yeah, but I look, what would I score this like out of 10 right now? 6.
Yeah.
I
mean, I was like, if I had seen this, 5 years ago, I've been like, this is wild.
Exactly.
But I've been using ChatGPT to write my Python scripts for a minute here, so
yeah, yeah, right. So and the last thing I would say with this is, what's really clear to me is that the user interface for data and AI has not been discovered yet.
Yes.
The chatbot is interesting, but it has so many limitations. The biggest one being your ability to properly articulate what you need to the chatbot. I don't think it's that. It's not going to be that. In 10 years, there will be some market leader in data AI, and they will, I predict, have an interface that we haven't seen yet. I don't know what it'll be. If I did, I would found that company.
Yes.
Believe me, I'm thinking about it, but I don't have an answer yet. So this is an interesting tool. It's a good start. I would say if you are invested in Databricks and all this, like, good enough, this is good enough for like your internal low value stuff, to have your end users come in and use Genie to just churn out a few someone says, I need this dashboard. You're like, all right, done. Right. It's 20 minutes. It's done.
I'd say, at this point, maybe your analysts, maybe not your business users.
No, not your business users. But it's interesting, and we'll see where it goes. The last few things to touch on: the pricing. This is all free.
Well, with your Databricks stuff.
Correct. So how does Databricks make money from this? It drives more compute spend. There are more queries being issued. Those queries cost money. There's more data being stored. That data costs money. That's how Databricks makes money off of this. They're not charging anything for these features beyond the additional compute that it drives. And then the final thing is just, well, is this going to, like, do I predict what's going to happen with this? I don't know. I know that Databricks hired a team of product managers to do this. So, like, they've made an investment. They have a team that's working on this. I would expect that to continue and for it to get more and more advanced over time. But what form that's going to take, I don't have any idea. So we will wrap it up there, folks. Listen, thank you for sticking around with us and watching this.